Okay, we saw last night that stam charomim are lahachmir. In other words, if my neder, I say it's stam, and we could touch the neder one of two ways. So, for example, a person said that this is basam aliyach, and he doesn't explain what he means. We can go in two directions. We could say he means basam aliyach of a carbon. The whole carbon chetakav melach. On every carbon there is salt, and as we know by now in this Masechta, in order for hatfasa, manifestation in something else, to work, it has to be that the object itself became asur through a neder. A carbon becomes asur through a neder, then it would be a good neder. Conversely, if he said basam aliyach, which is usually can be associated with avodah zarah is a davar ha'asur, and a davar ha'asur would not be a good neder. It's like being mafis in a pig. So therefore, we'll say stam will be machmir, and we'll state that he is in fact it's a neder. He meant to be mafis in a carbon. The Gemara is going to ask from Naziris. Naziris is a classic neder. Ish kiyafli linda neder nazar lahazal Hashem. We saw earlier in the Masechta, we make a hekesh between Nedarim and Nazir. Naziris comes about through a neder. So by and large, Nazir and neder are synonymous. So if stam of Nedarim lahachmir, then stam Naziris, if a person's mekabel Naziris, also should be lahachmir, should be a Nazir. Yeah, we're going to see that's not the case. Okay, says the Gemara. Vatanan, how could you stay stam Nedarim lahachmir, suffik Naziris lahakol? Okay, we're on Yudches on the base, beginning the Mishnah, the Gemara and the Mishnah. Stam Naziris is lahakol. The purpose of Naziris is makel. The person is not clear, suffix a Nazir or not, we'll say he's not a Nazir. Kasha, Rabbi Seira, loy kasha, it's not a problem. Rabbi Eliezer harabanan. Okay, the brisa that says stam Nedarim lahachmir is Rabbi Eliezer. There's a different gist of Rabbi Elazar. We'll stay with Rabbi Eliezer for obvious reasons, right? Rabbi Eliezer says that stam Nedarim will be lehakol, will be mekel, and our Mishnah is the Rabbanan. Let's meet them. The Tanya. Okay, outside. We know that there are different halachas between a behem and a chaya. There are three kosher chayas. There's a tzvi, a yol, and a yachmar. You cannot bring a chaya as a carbon. Two halachas and nafkamina. A chaya that requires kisei hadam. You have to cover the blood by the shchita. A behema you do not. Behema, the chaylev is nisakaris. The chaylev of a deer would be mutter. Those are two nafkaminas in halacha. So there's an animal called a kfi. Well, again, in the terms, in the Gemara terms, it's koi, but we lost his card, so now we're going to call it kfi because we lost Ernie Carr's card for those people who remember such narishkeit. Anyway, so we'll call it a kvi. It's a machlokes what a kvi is, whether kvi is a chaya or kvi is a behema. There's an opinion it's a separate entity in itself. So if you magdish all your chayas and all your behemoths, question is your kfi kaidish or not? If you hold suffik nedarim would be what? Suffik nedarim would be lahakol, then it's not. If lahachmir, then yes. So hamagdish chayasu behemoths. So a person's magdish is chayas and his behemoths. Higdish es hakfi, and among them there's a kfi. That kfi would be what? Would be kaidish. That's why, because suffik nedarim lahachmir. Rabbi Eliezer says lo higdish es hakfi. He's not magdish kfi. So now we're going to correlate a man being magdish a suffix of his mammon to being magdish himself as a nazir. The Tanakama who says that a person will put his mammon, his kfi into a suffix, gufanami mile. His guf also put into a suffix, and stam nedarim will be mahachmir. Right? And Rabbi Eliezer says that his mammon will not be mile suffix, and his mammon, his kfi is not a suffix, so certainly what? Gufei Amid Aleph, Kol Shekain, Loy Maile L'Sveika. So let's go through the Kasha and the Teretz. Our Mishnah says Stam L'Don L'Hachmir. We have a Mishnah in the Sechta Tyrus that says Stam Naziris is the Hakol. Let's read it as Stam Nedarim L'Hakol because Naziris is synonymous with Nedarim. And we're answering our Mishnah according to the Chachamim of Magdish Kvi, and the Mishnah in Tyrus is according to Rabbi Eliezer of Magdish Kvi that it's not Kodesh. Very simple answer, but of course not so simple. Now, Amalei Abaya. The suffix Naziris the Hakol, Rebbe Eliezer. You're saying the suffix Naziris is Hakol is Rebbe Eliezer, who says the Kfi is not Kaddish. in the same Mishnah there in Masechet Tyrus, here's the Seifa, Ema Seifa. Now we know that there's an animal, there's three Bechayrim. There's a Bechar Behema Tahira, there's a Bechar Behema Tameya. They're by Petach Hamar. If you have a firstborn male donkey, that either one or two things. You either pay the beseh, you take a seh and you redeem it, or varafta, you break its neck, you cut its head off. Okay, and then of course you have Bechar Adam, which you're required to go ahead and be paid the B'chamei Sloyim. So with that in mind, Safik and B'chayris. You have a Safik B'chayris. A woman gives birth, male or female, has twins. You don't know who came out first, right? Echa B'chayri Adam, Vecha B'chayri Behema, whether it's B'chayri Behema, Bein Tameya, whether it's a Chamar, Bein Tahara, whether it's a cow or a sheep, whatever. Hamaitzi Mechaber Al Varaya. We had famous classic case. Hamaitzi Mechaber Al Varaya is a Safik Mammon. You want to be Maitzi Mammon for me, you want to take money away from me, bring a proof as to what, that it's a B'char, and I'll gladly go ahead and give it to you, the Kayin. Now, the Tanya law, the Asurim B'Giza V'Avoida. However, even though it's a suffix, that animal that's a suffix, you will not be able to use its sharings. If it's a sheep, you couldn't use its wool. If it's a goat, you couldn't use its hair, and you couldn't certainly use its skin. V'Avoida, and it's also asa b'Avoida. It's I shouldn't say skin. B'Avoida, it's asa to go ahead and work it. You can't work a b'char. Question: if you're telling me that the Mishnah there in Tahiris that says Stam Naziris Lahakal is Rebbe Eliezer, and now you're telling me by b'char, it's asa b'giza avoida. So you see Stam Mammon is a suffix. So it's a steer mine ubei, right? It really is a steer from the Reisha to the Seifa. The Ran asked the question. So why are you asking the question on Rebbe Eliezer? Why don't you ask the question on the Mishnah itself? Look at the Ran. We don't have time for it. Anyway, the bottom line is l'chayr, you have a problem. So the Gemara answers, what are you talking about? You're zustelling a person making something kodesh by saying I'm a Nazir versus something that automatically min hashamayim. Obviously, min hashamayim we're more machmir. Maybe from shamayim this came out first. Vashein came. It's stam nedarim naziris depends upon the person's kivun. The person's kivun, stam his kivun, his kavana is going to be lemekel. So it's not a tzustel. The Rishonim even speak out like, what was the half minute of the Gemara to go ahead and even ask the question? The answer is so obvious. The difference between kedusha that comes through a person's mouth versus kedusha that comes through the rechem itself automatically. And the Gemara answers right away. So says the Gemara. And for the Gemara, Amalei, Amai Komadamis, Kedusha Abba, Me'alel, Kedusha Abba, Bidei Adam. How could you go ahead and compare Kedusha that comes to a person, that Kedusha that comes from Shemayim? So therefore, right now, our answer is intact. We always have to go back to the question. Our Mishnah says, Stam L'Dorim is L'Hachmir. We have a Stam Naziris L'Hakol, and we're saying that Naziris is what would be Rebbe Eliezer. Where do we know Rebbe Eliezer holds Stam, if you make a neder, you're makel. Where do you see that from the kfi? The fact that the kfi is not kaddish. So if the kfi is not kaddish, I'll suffix. Certainly, then the person himself is not kaddish, I'll suffix. So that's a teretz to the kasha. We answer from bechar. Now bechar is different. The suffix chumer there. Why is it chumer there? Because the sveika is bidei shemayim and not bidei adam. Okay. Now there's a halacha fellas of tumis mashkin. Tumis mashkin. In other words, most mashkin are they're tar. Most mashkin are tar. They're basically tar. The fascinating, I went through it, but I didn't understand most of it. There's the Meshech Chachma in past week's parsha, Anachi Oifer ve'efer, and he brings the Meshech Chachma says that's the side of Tumah v'Taira. He brings a whole beautiful. Basically, he says what I got from it was that anything Hashem makes is tahar. It's man who goes ahead and uses it that makes it tameh. So therefore, anything that's connected to the ground before man gets a chance to go, anything that's mechubah to the karka is not makabel tumah. Anything, even food stuff, before you go ahead and use it, you need machshava, because anything that is created by Kadosh Baruch Hu, in essence, is tahar. It's only the man in his actions that corrupts it that makes it tameh. So memela tumis mashkin, fellas, is not tumah deraisa. It's a tumah derabanan. We go through the tumah of the mashkin shalzav or sheretz, but again, it's tumah derabanan. So now there's two partners. With that in mind, let's begin. Ella, you want to ask a question on Rebbe Eliezer, that Rebbe Eliezer cannot be the Tana of the Mishnah, because Rebbe Eliezer would be Machmir, here's Yikasha. And it's a Lamdish Akasha, Elikasha Akasha. Sufik Mashkin L'Tameh. You have a person who's Tameh. It's a suffix whether he touched the Mashkin or not. And it's a suffix, that suffix will be Tameh. Very important. Again, suffix Tumah will be Tameh. Suffix Tumah will be Tameh. Fellas, here's the crux of the question. if I could prove to you that tum is the rabbanan, that mashkin is the rabbanan, and a suffix is tamei, right? Only suffix the rabbanan is tamei. How in the world can a suffix of deraisa be tahar? Again, if I could prove to you fellas that Rebbe Eliezer holds suffix tuma is tamei, that means we're machem by the rabbanan. How in the world could we be makel by a deraisa? And therefore, I will say Stam Naziris cannot be Rebbe Eliezer. Again, it's going to be an intricate limud, but at the end of the limud, the mechanics of Gemara. Here's the question: you answered our mission is according to Rebbe Rabbanon and Stam Naziris, which is certainly Deraisa. Naziris is Deraisa, is Rebbe Eliezer. If I can prove to you Rebbe Eliezer holds a suffix the Rabbanon is chomer, certainly he would hold a suffix the Deraisa is chomer. And therefore, he can't be the Tana who would say Stam Naziris, the Mishnah in Tyrus is Mekel. Guys, got it? That's the limit. That's the limit. Now let's just go ahead and prove that Stam Mashkin is the Rabbanon. Once I ascertain that that's the Rabbanon, I will, for all intents and purposes, remove Rebbe Eliezer from the equation as the possibility of being the Tana who holds Stam Nedarim is Lahachmir. Like the good light, no? New light. Right. Says the Gemara. Ali kasha kasha. Sufik mashkin l'tamei tamei. So I'm going to prove to you that that's the Rabbanon, and that's going to be the whole source. L'tamei acherim tahar. So it itself, to contract tuma, it's tamei if it's a suffix. However, to transmit the tuma to something else, it's tahar. Divrei Rebbe Eliezer, the chen haya, the divrei Meya, the chen haya. Let's change the gersa. The chen haya Rebbe Eliezer oimer kidvarav. So in other words, Rebbe Eliezer is in conjunction. He agrees that Stam Mashkin is Tamei. It itself is Tamei. Stam Mashkin, it itself is Tamei. Says the Gemara, Umi Sfira Le Rebbe Eliezer L'Tamei Tamei. Does Rebbe Eliezer really hold that it itself is Tamei? Does he really hold that it itself becomes Tamei? But Tanya, Rebbe Eliezer Oimer, Rebbe Eliezer himself says, Ein Tumas L'Mashkin Kol Ika. There's no Tumah Mashka at all, meaning there's no Tumas Mashka De'oraisa. There's no Tumas Mashka De'oraisa. Teda, what's the proof that there's no Tumas Mashkin Deraisa? Shari Heyud Yosef ben Yoezla Ish Sreda. Yosef ben Yoezla, one of the earlier Zvugim of Pirkei Avos fame. Al Ish Al Ayel Kamsa, that's a type of locust. I guess grasshopper ducking that it's kosher. The Al Mashkin based mitbachaya, and any liquid in the base mitbachaya, in the butcher shop, in the Beis Hamikdash is tahar. Now, why would it be tahar? Because it's tahar. Why would it be tahar? Because it's only the Rabbanon. And in the Migdash, because of they didn't want to go ahead and be marbatum in the Migdash, so therefore they said it's tahar. So you see that what? It's only the Rabbanon in nature. Now, who said this? Rebbe Eliezer said that. Good. Now, when it says that it's dachain, it's tahar, it could be one of two possibilities. Now, tahar means it itself can't be mitama something else. Aval tumas atzma yesh behen, but it itself has tumah de'oraisa. It itself has tumah de'oraisa. Then shapir. If you're going to tell me that the tumah of Beis Medachaya is that means it's only tamei to be mitama something else, but it itself will be tamei. Memela, you could tell me that suffix tumah to be mitama to it itself be tamei is de'oraisa, and therefore I can be makel by naziris. But according to Rav, that says midrabanon, it's midaraisa, it's totally tahar, completely, and only the rabbanon it's tamei. So let's go back to the first part of the brisa. Safik tuma letame, safik for tuma to contract tuma is what? Is tar, is the raisa, is the rabbanon. So now let's go through the kasha. The kasha is from those words that I shtel on. Safik mashkin l'tamei tamei. If it's safik, whether this mashkin contracted tuma, it itself is tamei. And who says that? Rebbe Eliezer, because he agrees with Reb Meir. In addition, I've just proven to you that the tuma must be the rabbanon, because we proved from Yosef ben Ezra that the raisa there is no tuma in the tuma's base mitchaya, so it must be the rabbanon. So now fair rice the kasha. If you Rebbe Eliezer holds safik tuma is the rabbanon, how could you hold Naziris, which is the Raisa, Safik Naziris is Mekel? It makes no sense. So what have we done? we had a kasha, back to our original question. Our first Mishnah that says Stam Nedarim is lahachmir. Mishnah in Tyrus, Stam Nazir is lahakol. You want to say this is Rebbe Eliezer? No, can't do. It can't be Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Eliezer would Zicha hold its tamei. Why? Zicha hold you're a Nazir. Why? Because he holds Safik Tumah de Rabbanon. Certainly Safik de Raisa. He would be Machmir. So he can't be the Tana. So now what are we going to do? We're going to find another Tana. We're going to find another Tana. And we're going to transplant Rebbe. We're going to transplant both Tanaim. We're going to transplant the Rabbanon of our Mishnah and transplant Rebbe Eliezer with Rebbe Yehuda from a different source. So therefore, it can't be Rebbe Eliezer. Guys, does it make sense? There's a lot of talking. Guys, good? Yeah, good Baruch Hashem. So now, Ela L'Ravda, okay, Ela Ha Rebbe Yehuda. It must be the Mishnah that in Tyrus that says Stam Nedarim, Stam Naziris is the Hakol Rebbe Yehuda. The Harav Shimon, instead of the Rabbanon, our Mishnah says Stam Nedarim Lahachmir is the Rabbanon, will give it a name. It's Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai would hold Stam Nedarim Lahachmir, and Rabbi Yehuda would hold Stam Naziris Lahakol. The Tanya, who are they? Okay, a man makes a Naziris on a Tanai. Hari Nazir, I am a Nazir. Im Yesh B'Kri Hazeh. If there is in this pile of Tfuah Meyakur, if there's Meyakur here, the halach he goes umatza shenignav oish avad, and he finds he can't possibly measure it because it's not there anymore. He can't possibly measure it because it's not there anymore. Rabbi Yehuda matir. Now it's a suffix, fellas. Maybe when he said the Naziris, there was correct. Rabbi Yehuda matir. So Rabbi Yehuda holds suffix Naziris is lahakol. Rabbi Shimon oisa. And Rav Shimon would say Stam Naziris or Stam Nedarim is Machmir. So therefore, we have somebody. We have an answer to Astira. Rebbe Eliezer. It's not Rebbe Eliezer anymore. It's Rebbe Yehuda. Because Rebbe Yehuda holds that you went ahead, you found this, you looked for it, it wasn't there, and nonetheless, what? And you look at the Ran for a second. Says the Ran. About 8 lines up from the bottom. The loy masik adaite the lahavi nazir. It's not, it doesn't enter his mind that he should be a nazir until it becomes clear that there's 100 core there. And since it never became clear, he's not a nazir. That's the svar. Okay, so we have a teretz to the kasha. And for our Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon, and the Mishnah in Tyrus is Stam Naziris is Rabbi Yehuda. The Rami, Rabbi Yehuda. I'll now ask a stira from Rabbi Yehuda on Rabbi Yehuda. Miyam Rabbi Yehuda, loy mile inshi nafshe l'sveika. Person won't enter a suffix to become a nazir because you don't have meyakor. Or reminu al yesu stira. Rabbi Yehuda says stam truma bi Yehuda. This is our Mishnah. Again, outside. Let's go outside. Two possibilities by truma. If it's trumas halishka, the separation of the shkalim, then it's a good neder because the shkalim become also through a neder. You made them also by giving them for a carbon. If it's truma goyrin, meaning the stuff that goes to the koyin, it's a davar asa, and it would be asa. Yehuda was in close proximity to the Beis Hamikdash. Galul was farther away; it was in the north. With that in mind, Rabbi Yehuda, who's in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, our Mishnah, stam truma be Yehuda asura. You know why? Because it's what it is. You mean truma salishka. Ube galul mutaros. And by Golol, it's mutter. Why? Because stam truma is going to be truma's goyrin. It's going to be the stuff we give to the goyin. She'ein anshe Golol makirin as trumas alishka, because the anshe Golol do not recognize trumas alishka because they live so far away. When you use that expression, they clearly it doesn't mean stam. And mamish means trumas goyrin. Good. So we're going to ask a question from the seifa of that. It says the Gemara, Taima the ein makirin. The reason why it's asa the makirin. That's why it's mutta. Makirin. But if they would recognize trumas halishka, it would be asa. If you're telling me stam, it's a suffix. If it's stam, it's a suffix. It should be mutta. Rabbi Yehuda says, in other words, Rabbi Yehuda says, if I make myself a nazir, I don't find the kri there. I'm not a nazir. It's mutta because we're makel. Over here you see your machmir. The whole reason you're makel is why because stam they're not makir. Without that, you would say the lashon your machmir. Steering Rabbi Yehuda minei ubei. Again, one more time. Rabbi Yehuda says we want to ascertain. Rabbi Yehuda says stam naziris is lahakol, right? Why? Because if you don't find meyakor, you're not a nazir. Yet over here, the reason we needed a svara, we don't want to say stam golol is what is mutter. The reason why stam golol is mutter because al suffix, it wasn't al suffix, it's because we're saying ema kirin. Basically, it doesn't mean that we're not makrit because they live so far in the north, they're not near the Beis Hamikdash. Take away that svara, you'd say stam, you would be machmir. Kasha and Rabbi Yehuda minei ubei, from one Rabbi Yehuda to the other. Amarabba, no. There's a difference between Nazir and there's a difference between the case of Truma. Gabi Kri Ksavar Kol Shesveka Chama Mevadai Loimal Nafshe L'Sveka. When the suffix is more chama than the vadai, you're not going to enter into a suffix. The ilug. Okay, now outside, let's go through this. We know that a nazir, or we've said it before, and now we will know. A nazir brings when it's the completion of his naziris, he brings 3 kabbanas. He brings a chatas, an oila, and a shlamim. He cuts his hair off. He puts it underneath the pot of the shlamim, which is cooking the zroya b'sheila, which goes to the kohen. The right forefront goes to the kohen. Just for trivia question, we learn out from there that's the source for shishim, that the right foot of a animal is 60th part of the animal. So that's where we learn shishim from, zroya b'sheila. Anyway, the point being that that's a normal naziris. What happens if he's a suffix nazir? You don't know for sure. Well, if you don't know for sure, you got a problem. Why? He can never get out of his naziris because he can never bring he can't bring his carbon. Because if he's not a nazir, the carbon is chulin ba'azara. If he's not a nazir, it's chulin ba'azara. We'll get back to a question in a second on that. I'll just go. There's a good question there. Let's hold off on it. So, in other words, a vadai, the suffix is more chomer than the vadai. Because if he's vadai a nazir, he brings his 3 kabbanas, he puts his hair, and he's finished. But if he's a suffix, oh man, is he like kahak, as they say in the vernacular, right? He's going to have to go ahead and never get out of it because he's never able to bring a carbon because you're going to bring chulin, a non-carbon in the azara. So then we say that what? He's mekel. Then we say he's mekel. But stam, in other words, Rabbi Yehuda is not a kasha. That Rabbi Yehuda holds stam Nedarim was the hachmer. He really holds your machmer. And really, when you're up in the north and you're up in the north, and if you know that maybe he means Chumas Halishka, Taka would be a good neder. Why Naziris is not a good neder? It's a unique pitchifka that's unique to Naziris because he doesn't want to be in a situation where he's a suffix. Because if he's a suffix, he's got grace at tzaris. The male will say if he doesn't find 100 core, he means not to be a nazir. Only Vadev is a nazir. So we're making Yestiras, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. What's Yestira from Kri of Naziris to Truma up in the north? It's not a problem. Rabbi Yehuda says Truma in the north. If you knew for sure, Taki be machmer. However, Mashenkim in Naziris, where you have the added aspect of the suffix being Mohammed in the Vadai, because the guy would never be able to get out of his Naziris, then we be makel and say he didn't mean to become a Nazir. Only a Nazir Vadai. So let's just theorize the Gemara. Amarava. Gabe Kri, by the case of Stam by Naziris, Ksavar, Kol Shesvek Chamam Vadai, with the suffix I'm a Nazir, is Muhammad and the Vadai, Lay Miley Nafshi the Sveka, person won't enter into a suffix. The Ilu Gabi Nazir, Vadai Negaleach, if he's Vadai Nazir, he's going to take a haircut, or maybe carbon, he's going to bring his carbon, in Nechal, right, and elite it. The Al Sveka, Lay Matzi Megaleach, on the suffix, you can't be Megaleach. So that's what. So now, what about a nazir that doesn't take a haircut? L'chayra, you have a problem. There's 3 types of naziris, guys. There's stam nazir, there's a nazir oilam, and there's a nazir shimshin. A nazir oilam, he takes a haircut, never takes a haircut unless it becomes too heavy. The classic case of nazir oilam is Avshalom. Avshalom is a nazir oilam. So therefore, the Gemara says, if the whole reason is that you can't be megaleach, so what about a nazir oilam? Maybe then the naziris would be a good kabbalah. Why? It's also why Muhammad the suffix than the vadai. Why? because the vadai mekel betar. If his hairs get too heavy, he can cut it off with a razor. Or maybe shalish paymas and you bring the chatas oil and shlamim. But if it's a suffix, not. So in other words, nazir oilam is also the same thing. You have the same problem of being of not being able to meet your kabbanas. What about a person says, Hareni Nasa Shimshin, if there's 100 core in the Kri? Now, taking a haircut's not a problem. Two nafkaminas of nazir shimshin to a regular nazir. One, he never cuts his hair, and two, he can be mitamal mason. Nazir shimshin can be mitamal mason. Good. So now, amalei nazir shimshin loy tanya. No one. Some person when he says I'm a nazir shimshin, I'm a nasty, a person not doing that. Not nazir. Amalei v'omer Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Ada says Tanya nazir shimshin. Put in nazir shimshin, meaning I'm a nazir shimshin. I'm a nasty. There's 100 korn decree, and over there you don't have the problem with galea because he never has to take a haircut. And Taka learned that. Amalei, so he told him, if that's the case, if that's it, Rabbi Yehuda, so who Rav Huna said to Rava, Tanya. If you learned it, you learned it. In other words, if there's such a man yom, there's such a man yom. But I didn't learn that way. But there's another man yom, there's another man yom with Shrei Tanoim. Okay, let's go. So what do we have so far? Let's go. Let's gather in the troops. Our Mishnah says Stam Nedarim is lahachmir. We have a Mishnah in Tyrus says Stam Naziris is lahakol. Right? We're saying our Mishnah is according to Rav Shimon, who says that if you don't know for sure in the Kri how much is in the Kri, that you are a Nazir, and why? Because Stam Nedarim is lahachmir, and the first part of the Mishnah is Stam Naziris lahakol, and the Mishnah in Tyrus is going to Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda says by Naziris, you see by the Kri, you're not, because if it's stolen or lost, you're not a Nazir. Just a side question. Ronnie asked the question like this: we learned early in the Masechta, you really can take a haircut in any one of the kabbanas. Now, an oil can be bought through a neder. A shlamim can be bought through a neder. A chatas you can't bring. You can make a neder to bring a chatas. A chatas is a chiyuv. So, if you're telling me the whole problem with the nazir is taking a haircut, he could take a haircut on the oil of shlamim. And an oil of shlamim could be bought conditionally. Watch, I'm bringing an oil. If I'm a nazir, this is my oil. If I'm not a nazir, then it's a neder, it's a nedava. Same thing with the shlamim. Go ahead, take your hair, cut it, and you're good. So why did the Gemara say a nazir suffix? You don't have an option of taking a haircut. You do have an option. Of course, you could. For the Gemara, lichatchil, that's only b'di'evet. Lichatchil, you're supposed to bring all three, and therefore, since it's b'di'evet, it's not a good teretz. That's the Ran brings the kasha and the teretz. Okay, so now we have a stira in Rabbi Yehuda. We asked the stira. What's the stira Rabbi Yehuda? By the Kri, he's makel, and yet the incident from the Mishnah is being machmir. The only reason why in Golol it's mutter is because they don't bring trumas halishka in Golol, but if they would, the suffix would be tamei, right? And stam would be tamei. So not tamei. Stam would be a good neder. So we're answering. There's a difference between Naziris and Stam Nedarim. Stam Nedarim, it could be Machmir, but Naziris, because of the Chumrah of not being able to Galech and be stuck as a Nazir, then you're not. Okay. Now the Gemara is going to ask, Amalek. Rabbi Hud, Rav Ashi Amar Hahi, the case of the Brisa that you said was Nazir Shimshin, Rabbi Huda Mishum Reb Tarfani. That's Rabbi Huda name of Tarfan. Okay, the Tanya. Okay, two guys are standing there. Guy walked by. Guy says, if this guy is so and so, I'm a nazir. This guy says, if the guy's not, no, I'm not a nazir. Turns out to be so and so. Is the guy a nazir or not? Right? Again, we pointed out a few times in the Masechta. Ish kiyafli linda neder. Ish kiyafli has to be a clear expression. It has to be a clear expression of the time of the neder, right? So, since at the time of the neder you didn't know this person. In other words, basically any tanai will not work because it's not. You have to be clear at the time when you make the neder. So since you don't know who the person is at the time of the expression, it would not work. So says Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Reb Tarfani, Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Reb Tarfani, Ein Echa Mehem Nazir. If neither one is a Nazir, if you said, I'm a Nazir, if this guy is Harry Levenberg, and it turns out not to be Harry, and this guy says, I'm a Nazir, it's not Harry Levenberg, the bottom is, you're not a Nazir. Okay? Says, my area Shenigna, why do you have to, what difference does it make if it's stolen or lost? Guys, go back to the Amid Aleph. Go back to the Amid Aleph. You have a stira from our Mishnah to the Tosefta that you brought by the Kri. Hareini Nazir, I am a Nazir. Im yesh b'kri hazeh meyakor, right? And you're telling me that what Rabbi Yehuda says you are not a Nazir. This is Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Tarfin. Why? Because since at the time you made the neder, it wasn't clear what's in the Kri or not, you're not a Nazir. Period. Why? At the time of the expression, you need total clarity. So, Fred the Gemara, when the Tosefta continues and it goes, and you go when you find it stolen, Even if it's not stolen, even if you have 100 core, you're still not a nazir. Because at the time you didn't know. So, Fred the Gemara Kasha, if you're telling me to answer the stira, what's a stira? Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah is mashma stam nedarim, you'll be machmir. Over here he's being mekel. What's the stira? This is Rabbi Yehuda according to Rabbi Tarfon. So it's not Rabbi Yehuda himself. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. This Tosefta is Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Tarfon. If you're telling me the reason why it's not a neder is because there's no clear expression at the time of the expressing the neder, so who cares whether it's stolen or lost? It's still not a. Well, even if it's not stolen or lost, you're not a nazir, right? So the teretz is, it says Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon is Isa. Rabbi Shimon, it says, is Asa, right? Rabbi Shimon is Asa. That's the finish. Let's see it inside. One more time. Rav Ashi Amahi, the brisa that we just said about the Kri, is Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Tarfon, but not Rabbi Yehuda himself. So it's not a steer from Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda. The Tahir Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Tarfon Aimeh Ein Echa Mehem Nazir. Lefi Shalei Nitin Naziris Elo Lahafla. Yihachi My Area Shenignav Oisha Avad. Why do you care whether it was stolen or lost? Eladiach Koyach Rav Shimon. It's telling me the Koyach Rav Shimon. The Afagav the Nignav Oisha Avad. That even though it's lost, Kasava My Linshi Nafshel Sveika. You hear the Chiddush of Rabbi Shimon, guys. What's the Chiddush of Rav Shimon? That even though at the time of the expression, right, you didn't know, and later you go find it's lost, it's still asa. It's still asa because the person will be nechnas to a suffix whether it's there or not. That's the chiddush. So we have an answer to this. The kasha, the original kasha, our Mishnah is according to Rav Shimon. The Mishnah and the Tosefta in the Ziris that says Stam Naziris in Tyrus that says Stam Naziris lahakal is Rabbi Yehuda. You ask the steer from Rabbi Yehuda to Rabbi Yehuda from the Ziris from our Mishnah to Kri. And we're answering, our Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda Stam. The Mishnah in Kri is Rabbi Yehuda name of Tarfon. Those are the bullet points. Okay, let's finish the Gemara. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer Stam Truma Rabbi Yehuda, we said what is Lahachmir, and Stam Gol is not. Hamakirin, if Makirin, that what they recognize, it will be also. Alma Sveika L'chumra, we see suffix L'chumra. Oimer Seifa, Stam Charamim, again, Cherim Bedek Abayas would be a good neder, Cherim L'Kahanim would not be a good neder. Stam Charam B'Yehuda is Mutarim, Ubegol Asurim. Shein Ansei Agol Makirin Eschame Kahanim. Hamakirin, if they would recognize Mutarim, they would be Mutar. Alma Sveika L'Kula. So the Reisha, in the Reisha of the Mishnah, of the last part of the Mishnah, Yemekel is Machmir, the Sefer Yemekel, Amar Baya, Sefer Elazar ben Tzaddik. The Sefer that you're being Mekel is Elazar ben Tzaddik. Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Stam Shuma B'Yehuda Asura, Elazar ben Tzaddik Omer Stam Charamim B'Gol Asurim would be Asur, and the Sveika would be what? Okay. Have a great day.